Hello, it's your favorite man-child Matt, and it is Wednesday yet again. I need to make this one a little quick because I'm in a hurry today because, well, it's quite a week, but whatever. So let's get into it. It is our weekend reading segment. Just a heads up, I don't know what's going to happen in the coming week, but things might change up a little bit, or they might not. I'm not certain. So I'll see what happens. I don't know, I'm in a weird flux right now, but we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about what it is I read last week and what it is that I'm reading this week. Last week, if you recall, we had Dark Knight's Death Metal War of the Multiverses, which was okay. Justice League Galaxy of Terror, which was pretty good, I have to say. Actually, I think I had Justice League Galaxy of Terror first as the option last week. But I like this better. So, this was a decent read. It felt like fill-in stories, but they were good fill-in stories. But my choice for what was pick of the week was this one, Gideon Falls. And, surprise, surprise, this was my pick of the week. Gideon Falls was great. Gideon Falls Volume 6, The End. As the title of the volume suggests, it is the end of the story. And it's hard to describe this one without describing the whole thing. I actually went through and read the whole thing again, and before I read this, and it's just a great story with great art. It's by Jeff Lemire and who's the artist? Oh, Andrea Sorrentino. They've been the writing artist team through the whole thing, all 6 volumes. It's just a great story. It's a complicated story to explain. I described it a little bit last week, is that it felt like it was at least somewhat inspired by the show Twin Peaks. If that makes any sense. It's got a lot to do with weird time and space stuff and the whole nature of evil and everything. It focuses, I took some notes once again. It focuses around a character named Norton Sinclair, who is this psychotic guy living in a city. He has a shrink named Dr. Angela Zhu, who's trying to help him with his problems. He wears like a face mask on, before we even had the, pandemic. He was wearing a face mask, but like one of those construction face mask type ones. And he's obsessed with going through garbage and collecting pieces of garbage because he feels like he's trying to build something. Meanwhile, in another part of the story, there's like this weird rural town where a father named Father Fred comes to town after the former Catholic priest died, and he shows up and he gets involved and he answers to this weird enigmatic bishop who keeps telling him that he's supposed to be here. Father Fred has a past where he had a drinking problem and he had an affair with a married woman, and it was a whole scandal. While there, he meets a sheriff named Clara Callahan. She has a weird relationship with her father, who's the former town doctor, who's obsessed with this thing called the Black Barn. That wherever this supposed Black Barn shows up, something horrible happens, dating back like hundreds of years. In Gideon Falls, the rural place they're in is called Gideon Falls, hence the name of the book. You find out later that Norton Sinclair and Dr. Angela Zhu, the city they're in, is also called Gideon Falls. How does that make any sense? They're 2 different places. Basically what Norton is trying to create, he's trying to rebuild the Black Barn. He can't stop seeing it. So it's all about this thing called the Black Barn, and there's some evil guy inside called the Smiling Man, and Norton is his chosen vessel, and you find out that Norton isn't actually really Norton Sinclair. His name is actually Daniel Callahan. He's Clara and Dr. Callahan. He's Clara's missing brother, who went missing when he was like 8 years old. and nobody knows what happened to him. Somehow he found this black barn, ended up in an alternate reality version of Gideon Falls where it was a city instead of just some rural little farm town. And it all dates back to like hundreds of years. The farm town Gideon Falls is the original Gideon Falls, and some guy in like the 19th century, a man named Norton Sinclair, created a device called the Pentaculus, where he found a way to basically peer through reality, to break through to alternate realities. But when he opened the doorway, he opened the door for something evil to come through. This thing that presents as like a giant cockroach came through and then possessed him. But the problem is, he became bound to the barn that Sinclair created the Pentaculus in. So the Smiling Man became trapped in this thing called the Black Barn. And the Black Barn, he was stuck in the Black Barn, but the Black Barn could move between different realities that were closer to each other, but only in the same place. So he could end up in Gideon Falls of different places, and somehow Gideon Falls was like the center of like the multiverse. So that was the place where like traveling through different realities was easier because the pathway was thinner because they sort of just overlapped on each other. There's this whole story about good and evil and darkness and light, and about how once the darkness and light were in balance, but then something happened and this weird thing, and then the bishop who sent Father Callahan, he ended up traveling through realities and shit, and that's how he knew where Father Fred was supposed to be, and he's been setting up some fight against him. He created Pentaculuses in all the different realities and figured out ways to travel between them. He was actually the priest who was part of the group that went to go confront the original Norton Sinclair, and when they confronted him, he got thrown through space and time. So it's all this weird thing about a battle against good and evil, and in the end, they managed to go back in time to when Norton Sinclair first turned on the machine, but they figure if they destroy the machine before it powers up too much, maybe they can stop all this from happening, and it seems like they did rewrite history a little bit and stop the whole, explosion of the multiverses and everything. But there was a hint that maybe the evil guy is still out there and he's still affecting the Daniel Callahan, Norton Sinclair guy. I'm describing it poorly, but it's actually a really, really interesting story. And taking it as just one volume isn't good enough. You got to read the whole thing. So yeah, there's my poor description of that. So what do we got going on this week? Well, this week we have another Dawn of X Volume 16. Let's see what this one's got. The stage is set for X of Swords. That's the big X-Men event that they have coming up. Well, it's already happened in the regular books, but even with the help of Jean Grey, Emma Frost, and Phantom X, can Storm save herself from the deadly technovirus raging within her? I think I've already read that story. The non-treaty nation of Russia is working to undermine Krakoa, and the Beast wants Colossus on X-Force's side as the first drumbeats of war begin to sound. That sounds new. With Excalibur embroiled in otherworldly conflict at the Starlight Citadel, Apocalypse takes sinister steps towards his ultimate goal, and when the summoning begins, nothing will ever be the same for the X-Men. That sounds ominous. Let's see what this collects. This collects Giant Size X-Men by Jonathan Hickman and Benjamin Percy. That's the one I think I've read. Storm #1 by Teenie Howard and Russell Dauterman. I might have read that one too. X-Force 11 through 12 by John Bazaldua and Marcus Toe and Matthew Wilson. That's new too. Excalibur 11 through 12 by Guru FX, Eric Arciniaga, and Sonny Go. And X-Men 12 by, I think Jonathan Hickman is currently the writer, so I don't know. But doesn't have anyone listed. But that sounds like an interesting read. We'll see. Next up, The Amazing SpiderMan, Volume 12, Shattered Web. And from the cover, it looks like we can see who the villains are going to be, but let's see. Recent events have taken their toll on Peter Parker's world. In the wake of Last Remains, you'll never look at Norman or Harry Osborn the same again. Yeah, they revealed that the weird centipede demon that's been plaguing Peter is actually a piece of Harry's soul. We know you'll never look at Norman or Harry Osborn the same way again. We know Spider-Man certainly won't. But as Spidey continues to pick up the pieces and put his life back together, the gathering storms are swirling more and more violently. Mr. Negative is back and wants only one thing: his own alter ego, Martin Lee. That's weird. But how is that possible? Exactly. Meanwhile, Peter and Mary Jane have been through so much, and the specter of Spider-Man has been a constant strain on their relationship from day one. Is there anything left for them to cling to? As one era comes to a shocking end, an unexpected new day is dawning. Ugh, I hate the will they, won't they with fucking romances and comic books. It's so boring. But, yeah. It says Collecting Amazing Spider-Man 56 through 60 by Nick Spencer, Mark Bagley, Marcelo Ferreira, Andrew Hennessy, John Dell, Andy Owens, Wayne Foucher, Rachel Rosenberg, Edgar Delgado, and Maury Hollowell. We'll see. And then Outcast, Volume 8, The Merged. This has been an interesting book, too. It's like Gideon Falls in that it's just one big story and you kind of have to read the whole thing, so we'll see. The hit horror series from Walking Dead creator Robert Kirkman concludes. Another last issue. So it's a lot like Gideon Falls, again. Allison has been possessed, but it's unlike any possession Kyle has seen before. How will this affect his mission to save the world now that the Great Merge has begun? The end of everything is here. Collects Outcast by Kirkman and Acezeta, 43 through 48. I know the Kirkman is Robert Kirkman. What is Acezeta's first name? Paul Acezeta. Azazeta. Sorry, I think I was pronouncing that wrong. Azazeta. Yeah. So, this is my choice for pick of the week. I think it will be. This has been a good book. It's about sort of like demons and shit, but not really. It's hard to explain. It's one of those things about how our understanding of things maybe isn't quite accurate because these are things beyond our understanding. But it has a effect still very similar to Gideon Falls in that it's about darkness and light. I do think I remember this one a little bit better. But we'll see. Like I said, it's my pick of the week. I think it'll probably end up being accurate next week whenever I get around to this next week. But like I said, we will see. So yeah, that's this episode of Weekend Reading. I'm going to try to make these more quicker. See if I can keep them down to around 15 minutes or so. It's not like anybody's really watching them, so. But who knows, maybe somebody will one day. That'd be nice. Yeah, so that's what I'm reading. If you're reading something good, why don't you tell me what that is? Or don't. It's up to you. But you know, it would be nice to talk. Ow. So yeah, that's what I'm reading this weekend. Hope you have a good one, folks. Bye.